You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Matt Fowler.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
All right, sure. Hey, what's up? I'm Matt. I'm an internet marketer out of Minneapolis, and I work out of my home. And I usually kind of focus on working with a handful of small businesses, so that I can both keep my overhead and my costs low, so I can do a bunch of random shit on the side too, like running a podcast or writing and getting books out there on Amazon and stuff like that. So I try to wear a lot of hats.
So what types of things do you work on like a daily basis? Are you just trying to help someone get like their market strategies out there, or?
It's a little bit. So a lot of times with small businesses when they're starting up, there's usually kind of a couple factors that go into me working with somebody. A lot of the time it's either they're too busy to keep up with it the way they need to, or they have the energy and the ability to want to learn and want to learn how to do it, but they don't really have somebody who can guide them through it. So often it's either I'm either completely taking over for somebody so that they can not worry about it, or what I'll do is I'll do that and then kind of also create videos and showcase, this is what you're doing, this is why we're doing it this way, this is the angle, and this is the target for what we're trying to accomplish. And a lot of people just don't have kind of like the wherewithal to know all the markets that are available to you as a budding business.
Well, that's the ever changing process of social media. I've talked to a couple internet marketers, and they said the hardest thing for a small business owner is usually of an older age. They think of it more as like the personal connection with people. They don't understand the grasp of social media. So when they come to you, first of all, to even look for this type of advertising, a lot of people don't understand. Like you're scrolling through Instagram, and there's advertisements right there. Like that's how you get business stuff out there. There are very, very few companies you never need to see a fucking advertisement for, which is like Coca-Cola. They don't, they dominate the market. So they don't need to be producing advertisements. But for a small town business person, like if you were going to be like a small town deli in your local community and you're trying to broadcast it out to people, you got to look for like, hey, what's the way I can get it maybe in the newspaper, certain ways that are going to reach people in your area. And also if we have tourists that come down, be able to attract them too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's usually the big thing we kind of angle for in the first couple months is we try to make sure that we're doing all the standard long-term things we'd want to do, like making sure you've got blogs or making sure that you've got all of your articles, your website is up and running the way it should be so that you can rank for all the local shit. Setting up things like Google My Business or other local things like that is surprisingly common because a lot of people are like, how do I get on Google Maps? I'm like, fucking Google that. Just Google that. You don't need me. Just go look up that.
How do I work Google? Google how to work Google. I'm pretty sure it can help you out with that.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Does that do that through Siri?" I mean, fuck, man, no. It gets to be a little bit, I get a bit much when it comes to just trying to go through all that. But
I love technology and all, and it's a huge benefit, but I try and disconnect from it. But I realize how reliant my life is now structured around it. Like I see, we have a local deli in our town, and they don't need to do any advertisements. They're a Jewish deli. That's what they're known by, and everyone goes there and they just get layered up with meat. But I'm like, you don't understand. People that come here don't know to experience this food. They're going to go and stop at a McDonald's, or they're going to stop at somewhere that gets commercial television. And the guy's just like, yeah, one day I'll adapt to the new world or something. And I'm like, man, it's crazy just to see that spread at word of mouth, because when you're in a marketing industry, if you're not constantly being in the public's eyes, basically shoved in their face a lot, you're not really going to get a whole lot of people stumbling across you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of phrasing it. And I think it's funny because I think it's one of those things that I've kind of taken out of the business life and into my personal life as a consumer, where it's like, I think the only thing that'll be like a mainstream thing if I'm going somewhere is if I can't find any coffee shops nearby, I'll pick up a Starbucks. I think that's the only one where it's like, it doesn't matter where I go in the country, I'll pick up Starbucks if I can't find a good local coffee shop. But it's just like, it's another one of those things where sometimes people just don't give a shit about having a local coffee shop or something like that. Or and so that's kind of like, I always try to, like, if we're going to pick up lunch, we're going to pick up breakfast. Most of the time I'll go on to like Reddit and I'll try and find a city, and I'll usually just throw up a thread and I'll say, hey, what are some good places to check out when I'm in town?
Yeah, that's crazy though, because if you're rely like where you go on your like kind of like what people give reviews on, a lot of people don't leave good reviews. A lot of times it's just mostly bad. Like you're more than willing to write a thoroughly dedicated, detailed article shitting on somewhere rather than writing an extremely good one. You know what I mean? And it makes it difficult because like Starbucks, okay, that's the first thing you think of when you got coffee. It's nothing else. It's just Starbucks basically. And like nobody knows that 7-Eleven coffee can be just as good. You can make it that good. You know what I mean? But everyone just thinks of Starbucks. Like for me, I try and go to businesses I've never heard of. I try and shop locally too, like local surf shops. We have a bunch of, I live in a tourist beach town. So everyone's going to like Ron John's, they're going to Kate, like they're going to all these giant, like monetized, like everywhere. Like there's 7 of them a street away from each other. And I'm like, go to the local surf shop where the guy's going to actually create a relationship with you, like a friendship, talk to you, help you find what is needed rather than just some person working there for a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Because it's like, that's the thing. It's just so frustrating. It's just like, and that's your thing too. Is when you get to a place like I'm in Minnesota, so there's a pretty big like focus on local markets up here, which I think is pretty cool. But it's one of those things, like especially for example with breweries up here. There are like probably 30 breweries from me within about 10 miles. And it's so funny because I'll like, on one hand, I'll make a check mark where I'll be like, this is a brewery that I really like. But then I'll be like, I'll have to save that for later because I want to see if there's other breweries that I really like too. So it's always a little interesting when I'm trying to go really deep into local markets. But if you get into something like that where you have so much diversity in one location, it's hard to wonder, like I wouldn't say it's like a grass is greener kind of situation, but it's more like, I guess it's like, I have to see all of this grass. But it's just interesting trying to explore all these different markets and all these different locations. Like I know I shop at Trader Joe's for a lot of my fresh produce, but then at the same time there's like farmers markets up the street for me every Saturday, and there's local co-ops too because there's such like a strong community for farmers up here. And it's always interesting to be like, I thought I was kind of doing the right thing with produce, but now I'm not so sure. And so it's like how deep into the local markets
Are
can
you
you
willing to go? Yeah.
you know?
I think it's nuts because, like, when I was a kid, I remember skating up and down this local town we have. And, we titled ourselves selfishly, or they did, as world's greatest small town. I'm like, I fucking live here. I know this place is not that good. But they changed it, man. They took out all the local shops. Everything is so, like, new. I'm like, the best part about this town was it was an authentic type of old. Like, all the stuff came from, like, 1890 something, like bricks, you know. It was insane to see. And then now it's all changed. Like there used to be a video store on the corner. It was a family owned shop that we knew the people in there. They knew my family. They knew when I was 13 years old getting a rated R movie like Halloween or something. I shouldn't have been doing it, but my parents were probably out of town. Now they're gone. They're not there anymore. That is turned into, I think it's turned to some like convenience store. Like you go in like a dollar store or something. I'm like, what happened? Like everything's getting changing. And I'm like, sometimes the best places are the ones that might have a crappy look on the outside, but you go in, like it's the main thing I love about graffiti on a building and owner chooses to keep it there. I'm talking about good graffiti, not the bad, shitty, drawing a penis or something. I'm
The ones
talking
you see on like a train.
yeah, like the ones you see were like, damn, someone took the time to do that. Like the one time I experienced this was in Hawaii. They had people that would pay to get their buildings painted by graffiti artists, like people on this giant hotel. I remember leaving the airport, the whole left side of it was the cool, not the fruit punch guy, that guy, the five.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the world in one hand and he had a portal in the other, and the portal was pulling out smog and the earth was getting like it was so weird, but it was so trippy to see. And I was like, some dude painted that, like literally got on one of those lifts, like the ones you use to clear windows on like skyscrapers, and sat there and did this whole giant scale on this like 50-story building, and the dude got paid for that.
That's crazy.
It shows the beauty in art, first of all, but like it's got to be heartbreaking for you, at least. Like you're working with a small business and they kind of show hopes, but they end up giving up on it. And next thing you know, their thing kind of fails.
Yeah, I think that's the roughest. I think it's one of the reasons. It's definitely one of the reasons why I like doing it, because I really like, and it sucks too, because sometimes I'll get burned because I'll work with somebody and like it'll just not work out between the two of us. But I just at that point I'm so invested. but I think it's one of the biggest reasons why I like doing it. I just I used to, full disclosure, I used to work at Starbucks. So about like I worked for Starbucks for about 5 years.
Did you just get tired of seeing all the white girls walk in?
That's what it was. Yeah, and I was 10 minutes from the beach. I was living in Florida at the time. So you bet your ass everyone was always getting those fucking frappuccinos. And that shit's just a pain in the ass to make.
Now, how pissed off as a barista were you, like when someone would just come in with a Bluetooth in their head and like just sit there and just talk obnoxiously loud while in line? You're like, what are you doing?
Just expedite their order. I just get it done as fast as possible.
Oh, you give them that credit? You get them out of there as fast as possible?
Yeah, because there's nothing I can do. And to be fair, not that I was like, I look back and I don't know if it was me being like cringy or if it was me just being like really over it. But I know that I would be because I was always the person who was on bar. I usually be pretty aggressive because I was always doing the morning shifts. And so I was always, and the biggest fucking thing is they're like, drive-through times, got to make it less than like 52 seconds. And I just get in there, like I drive up at like 5 a.m, just like blaring speed metal. I'd already have like a cup of coffee that I had from the day before. I'd freeze it and I just pound it really quick. And I just go in there and I fucking go. And I would like not give a shit about connecting with people. I'd be like, drink, got it, go. So I was very, get this fucking thing out the door right now. So that, I mean, it's funny, just kind of like I guess that's kind of what it was. It was like, I knew that I was like in a machine and I knew I wanted to be like a really well greased cog in it. But
yeah, well, you don't want to be the slow one. You don't want to be the like little Jimmy that's holding the whole group back from surviving. You know what I mean? It's crazy because people get really fucking weird about their coffee orders.
oh, for sure.
Like my cousin, like, I mean, props to him, but for me, coffee is coffee. Okay. It doesn't matter what brand it is. Doesn't matter what it is. I'll put a little bit of flavored syrup in it and it's good for me. I don't care. Well, he goes like, I want to get this and then 2 shots of espresso with a pump of this. And I'm like, it turns into like he's listing a grocery list. And I'm like, you know how much your coffee's going to be? And he goes, no. And I go like because the Dunkin' Donuts people, they don't tell you what their like the coffee price is. They just say, pull up to the window. No. That doesn't fly with me. So at my local Dunkin' Donuts, I actually got them to start telling you the price, mostly because my buddy works the counter. So he'll be giving like, well, I'll be giving him my order and he's like, pull up to the window. I'm like, can you tell me the fucking price? Because my cousin just ordered a list of things and I know that's going to be a $10 coffee. He goes, it's actually $8.95. I'm like, $8.95? You could spend $1 at McDonald's. My cousin's like, do you know what you just said? That's like saying like you bought a thrift shop shirt and then you're comparing it to Nike. I'm like, what's happening?
That's exactly right. And it's so weird too, because I've been on, oh, sorry, brief aside, because this is one of my favorite stories about a persnickety order. One time I was handing a drink out from the drive-through, and I was switching positions, so I was going from bar to the window. And this person always likes getting your coffee made from one specific person. So when I handed the coffee off, they asked me, "Did you make this?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "Can you have this person make this?" And I just kind of like, yeah, of course, sure. Like, meanwhile, being dead inside and both wanting to murder. So I just kind of round the corner and I tap that person on the shoulder. I'm like, "Can you hand this drink out the window?" And then he just goes and does it. And it's like all of a sudden, oh, it's so perfect. It's so good. So some people just have that that mental bias about they want everything to be a certain way.
Oh, dude, I've experienced it. I work at a hotel, and we have this woman that comes down, I think, a certain week of October. And when she comes down, she only wants one housekeeper cleaning her room. She's came for like every year for like the past, I think, like 10 years or something, and always asks for this one housekeeper. And I swear to God, she is probably the biggest pain to deal with. She wants everything, all the remotes, everything wrapped up in a bag. So when she touches it, it's like touching plastic. And then she wants her whole room bleached every single day. Like, it's a whole lengthy process. And she doesn't handshake you. She comes up with her thumb and then presses her thumb against yours. And I'm like, yeah, it's a really tasking process. But I'm like, oh, like, for me, I studied a little bit of psychology, so I see that and I go, that is OCD.
Oh,
That
sure.
is a type of thing of trying to fix. And some people are like, no, she's just fucking nuts. I'm like, no, she's got something in her head where like something like this is what makes her comfortable. Like, I'm pretty sure at some point in my life, I would walk in a room, flick the light switch like 4 times just so my family wouldn't die. Like, I'm pretty sure we all did some religious thing like that for a brief moment in our life. Like, we just had some belief in something that wasn't, really what it was. And
Yeah.
that's what I chalk up to that. I'm like, just because she found a safe way to do that. And that explains why people get comfortable with people that make their food. Like, I've been to a restaurant. We have my grandparents used to take us out to the same Applebee's, and it was always the same chef every time. They knew my grandparents, so he'd always come out and like talk to us for like a good couple hours. We created a relationship, and it's been like we've been going there for a while, and then we stopped a couple of years ago. But he was still working there, and they'd be like, "Is John in?" "Oh, sorry, John's not working today." And my grandpa would just look at me. "We're going to go to a different restaurant." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because honestly, we just came in to see him, and he makes our food right." And I'm like, I know what that means, because honestly, they take a little bit more time when they actually have a personal relationship with you.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah.
you're best friends with your barista and you're a coffee drinker, that's probably the life right there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because that you'll definitely get a lot of those moments where it'll be like that. 'Cause that's all it takes is you have that 3 or 4 times, and then on that one side of the bar you just internalize that person's getting this, that person's getting this. So you can start like pre-making their beverages to get them out the door faster, that kind of thing.
Yeah, you know what they like too. It's like, oh, that guy's. You see him pull up in the parking lot. Oh, that's Jim. He likes a double pump of Java chip in there too. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh shit, let's get that going. Like, how complicated was it for you to kind of like, like you see someone come in, and then there's someone in line that's been waiting like 5 minutes, but you're like, I'm gonna get this other person's coffee out of the way, and then I'll work on the first guy.
It's never it actually it like very rarely does it end up being an overlap like that. A lot of the times what would happen is if like say that person is still ordering their like menu items and I didn't overhear what that person was saying, then I can't start the drink until either the sticker machine comes out, or if it was a few years before that, until the person who was on POS had written out the order and handed it to me. But that's the other thing too is there's two failures of communication on that side. It's either the person didn't speak loud enough so that I couldn't hear them, which isn't their fault. They're probably just in that little nice little kinesthetic sphere where that's a comfortable speaking level and they don't want to fucking shout it at me. But the other part is if somebody on POS didn't hand me the cups, and usually I'll do little tells where I'll kind of peek my head back. So if the person was inexperienced, I wouldn't see it. But if someone had been there for a long time, they'd either already walked the cups over to me or they're at least facing them out so I can know what to start on. But if those two factors didn't happen, yeah, I'll scoop that person's drink in, and it usually isn't a big deal, because you
I
never know if that person just getting a regular cup of coffee and then it's out of my jurisdiction, or if they're getting like a hot tea or something like that. So, every once in a while you'd get someone who'd be upset because it'd be like, why did they get their order before mine? And I'd just say the same thing. They're here every day. I happen to know what their order is.
Yeah, I swear every time I go in somewhere, I will wait like 10 minutes for like the most simple coffee, like just a caramel coffee or maybe just something with a little bit of flavor in it. And then I'm sitting there waiting like 20 minutes and everyone just keeps coming in front of me and grabbing a drink and going. And I'm like waiting for my name to be called. And then when my name finally does get called, they completely fuck up spelling my name. And I'm like, did you even care? Like you could have just hawked a loogie in it and I probably would have drank it anyway, man.
I know. It's always funny because I think it's one of the reasons why, and it's so funny because you'll see shit like that carry over to your normal life. So I was doing it for like 5 years. Every time I meet somebody named Brian, I always ask them if it's with an I or with a Y. Just because you just pick up these little things that like will make an impact on that person. But it's also just because like I got fucking annoyed of always writing someone's name down. So I always get really specific with it. So
Well,
I know.
you gotta think you're like breakfast in the morning, the most important meal of the day. Sometimes people just run off coffee. They don't even go anywhere else. They drink a coffee, don't even need food, and they won't eat until like later in the day. So like you're giving them that cup of enjoyment. Like they want it to be good. They don't want it to. Well, honestly, they want it to be like a milkshake. It's not even really coffee anymore when you start throwing a half a bag of chocolate chips in it. I mean, Java chip, dude. Have you looked at the calories that are in a Java chip?
Yeah, it's super nuts, and I think it's funny because I think it's one of the ways. I don't know. I don't want to disparage the brand, but I think it's one of the ways how I often think it to myself like, how did I end up staying there for 5 years? Like, how did I not try and pursue like a different thing? And to be fair, I was working there. I was just like always. I was thinking to myself, I'm just going to be like a beverage guy, because for about half that time I was also working at a bar at night. So I was always like, I was either making coffee in the morning or I was making cocktails in the evening. And so it's always interesting because I think when I stopped bartending full time was when I was like, I need to get a different trade, which is kind of how I got into what I'm doing now. But it's always funny because I think the biggest thing that they do is you get free food when you're there. You got like one free food item for like a lunch break, and you get free drinks while you're there. But you should really try and be reasonable with it. But I think it's so funny because you always see like a freshman 15 kind of situation going on, where like when somebody's starting out, they're just running the gauntlet. They're just trying everything on the menu, all the variations of it, all the different sizes of it. And it's like, I swear, by like the third or the sixth month, you're completely burned out and you know what you like and you just get the same thing every day. Because then it was like, there's a point where like, I know I wanted to try all the Frappuccinos and I wanted to try all of this, that, but I never fucking ordered one after like my first year. It got to the point where I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. It got to the point where I was like, I'm at my job. I need to be consistent. So I always have the same drink routines from the beginning to the end. I always started off with a double shot of espresso. Then I always had an iced coffee. Then I always had an iced tea. And that was just me regulating the way that caffeine was getting into my system and leaving my system, so that when I got home, I could actually take a nap and not have to worry about just being wired and have my legs wiggle all day.
What's your favorite, I guess, drink to get at Starbucks?
Um, it's a combination. So I would either get the venti iced coffee, and I get it black now. I don't. I maybe throw some coconut milk in there, but I know some places, if they got a new person on the window, they'll charge for coconut milk when they shouldn't if it's in an iced coffee. So that's my variance of being like, I don't want to accidentally get charged 60 cents for like 2 ounces of coconut. So I'll sometimes get it with coconut milk, but I'll always get the same amount of sugar in that or of any iced black tea. And it's 4 pumps of liquid cane sugar not 4 pumps, not the standard, which is 6 pumps of classic, which is just a simple syrup with some preservatives in it. But the liquid cane sugar, I think, it is lower sugar, but I think it has a richer flavor just because it's, darker.
That's some like I immediately pictured you holding a wine glass pretentiously in your hand, like when you smell the wine and you're like the way you just explained that was such a process. I was like, all I heard was you wanted coffee, here's a coffee, and it's like, but it doesn't taste right. I'm like, look, I have been my very first time. I basically hopped off my friend's order. Like, if you go out to somewhere and you don't know what's on the menu, you're just like, I'll have what he's having.
Yeah.
So I had a caramel brulee frappuccino, iced. Okay, it was completely different than when I had like they had a seasonal thing that looked really good in the fucking window, but then when I actually had it, I was like, this tastes terrible. Like, this is the most disgusting thing. I feel like you're suffocating me with some pumpkin spice, like you're choking me out with it. And it's crazy because, like, yeah, you get religious by your order then, because then you're like, I don't want to go off into anything else. I think recently I tried to do this in my first, like, in a long time. I bought a thing of drinks from Walmart, like sparkling water, the LaCroix or whatever, and I was like, I've never tried these before. Let me try it. And then I tried it, and I was like, I just wasted $10 on 6 little cans that I'm not going to drink. I literally threw it right in the trash.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm getting to the point now where either my palate is simplifying or I'm just liking things in like moderation. But I like LaCroix a lot. But when I was like probably 17, 18, and I was still on like my Diet Coke binge, I couldn't drink it. I hated it and I thought it sucked. And then, what got me to start liking it was when I was working at the bar and I would have club sodas when I was working with a little bit of lime. So that way, if a customer ever bought me a drink, I could drink that and they would still think that I was drinking alcohol with them. But if I drank every drink that somebody bought me, then there's no fucking way I would be able to walk home that night. So that was kind of how I started doing it. Is they'd be like, I had like one guy who'd be like, he'd always come in, he'd always get a vodka soda, and then he'd be like, and pour one for yourself too. So I just pour soda because I didn't want to make it look like I'm being a dick about it. So he would always think that I was drinking that, and that's kind of how I started enjoying club soda more. It started being somewhere I'd just do that and throw a lime in there. He's like, throw a lime in mine too. And then it just turned into, this is not bad. It's kind of refreshing. It's a nice way to get some water in while you're working.
So being a bartender at nights, like this leads into kind of your podcast. Like you do a podcast called 2 Bottles Down, and it's like a drinking podcast. Now, someone hears that you're doing a drinking podcast, they immediately think someone's an alcoholic. I hear that and I'm like, well, if you look at it, there's a bunch of flavor combinations. It's literally like being a barista at Starbucks. Like, you like coffee in different flavors. Well, did you know you can try alcohol in certain combinations and get a pretty good banging fucking taste?
Yeah. That's for sure. And I think it's kind of one of the beauties about what we do. Because when we first started the podcast, and I think you can probably weigh on this with your experience of running out the blank, but you're at what, like 152. Well, you're in the 150 episodes or something like that.
Yeah, getting there.
Yeah, you're getting out there. But it's like it's funny because we started the podcast and it turned into something where I knew that I wanted to kind of hang out with my friends, but married, I was working another job and I was starting a business at the time. So I was like, I have to find a way to make me being a fucking hooligan something worthwhile. So we kind of had the idea of starting up this podcast where we're all just going to drink a bunch of drinks. And it turned into 2 Bottles Down, which was funny because we didn't do a beer season or anything that actually had bottles until season 3. But it turned into something where if we didn't really know what it was till like 10 episodes in. We didn't really.
It's definitely something interesting because, look, I'm not a drinker. I mean, I'm 21 years old, haven't even bought a legal drink of alcohol. It's just not something I don't really care for. But I'm still interested in listening to your podcast because hearing you guys talk about the type of stuff, you did one on rum and Coke, and I was like, this is a popular drink. Like, I remember trying it when I was like 13, it was funny. I was at my buddy's house, and his mom's kind of like the mom and the dad, like kind of runs the family, but she's buff too, so she'd beat the shit out of us if she needed to.
grab the scruff of your neck and throw you out.
I remember it was like 1:00 in the morning, and she had Coke on the table, and I was looking at it, not like cocaine, but Coca-Cola. And there's someone out there that's like, "Hey, Coke on the table."
And she's like, "This is how I get my gains."
Cutting it up Scarface style. Yeah. It's not easy being cheesy.
Yeah.
But like she told me, she was like, "You want to try some?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." She goes, "I want to ask your dad." And next thing I know, I'm like, "Okay." And then my dad gave him the okay, and I'm like, "Well, I mean, that's something you got to do. I mean, experiencing a beer with your dad, experiencing a beer with your grandfather, whatever those types of things were, they're not stigmatized. You're a kid. It's like if you buy a gun and you have a kid in the house, you're going to want to let them show them that it's there, and also let them kind of touch it. I know that sounds weird, but if you don't let them see what it is now, and then you try and hide it from them, they're going to always have that curiosity to go discover it on their own.
Oh yeah, we just want to fuck with shit all the time. What's that? Why can't I touch it? So that's just exactly the mindset that goes along with something like that.
Well, the best part about, like, if you're a bartender is you can constantly try and find new drink combinations. Like, you have that whole arsenal there behind you on the wall. Like, you can sit there and be like, maybe try this with that, maybe try this with that, and then you get to know your customers you can test it out on. And next thing you know, bam, you create a drink.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny how in depth it can get. And we kind of tried to do that with the first season, where I think the first handful of drinks, we wanted to have a focus on covering the major types of alcohol, like your vodka, gin, rum, tequila, whiskey, of course. So we kind of tried to do, a gin and tonic or a gin and club. And we did like a rum and Coke. And then we did, I think we did margarita might have been the one we did with tequila, but we also did one where we just had tequila by itself when we were in there. So we tried to focus. It's kind of the way I tried to structure the season, because I wanted it to be like that for somebody who was interested in having a passive understanding of these alcohols without having to buy them themselves, or if they wanted to have a guide, if they wanted to try and do it. So I think that was exactly how we were planning it. We were wanting to do it. We wanted to make the season so if a college kid bought each of those liquors, they could go out and make all of the drinks in the first season. And I think there's only a couple that require something else. But that way, someone not only is able to drink responsibly, but they're able to have a good understanding and a good grasp of what liquors are as a fundamental concept, while still being able to, there's still banter, there's still stuff going on. It doesn't feel like a lecture. It feels like a
bunch of friends drinking.
Sorry, what?
You said a bunch of friends drinking.
Yeah, that's it. So we I think that we wanted to capture that feel. It's a couple of guys throwing a couple back, but instead of talking about work or talking about water cooler situations, we're talking about what we're actually drinking about. So it's certainly the nice angle that we're kind of taking on everything. And then that felt completely like we just blew the roof off the concept in the second season, where we did liqueurs. And so it's funny too, because that's the season that like I've had it on my hard drive for like probably 6 months, and I haven't brought it over to YouTube or the Podbean yet. But that's one that's even a better utilization of that concept, because so you have liquors, which are your main tiers of beer, your main tiers of alcohol. And then with liqueurs, you have all of these really weird niche offshot combinations of flavor that can go from anywhere like 15% alcohol by volume up until I think we did one that had 70% alcohol by volume. So with this wide swinging arm, it's so interesting to kind of explore all of these at length, because there's a lot of times where there'll be an overlap in flavor. There'll be overlaps in like where things are from. there'll be differentiations with what the major players are in that. So, like for example, if you have something like Frangelico, which is if I remember correctly, like an almond based liqueur. There's really only one person in the world who makes Frangelico. But then when you have something like triple sec, well, then you've got the Kuipers makes triple sec. You can find a triple sec mix. Everyone is familiar with Cointreau, which is a really fancy version of triple sec, but it has a lot of different things in it too. And I think Grand Marnier is in Cointreau as well. So it's interesting because you can go in and you can explore these things that are pretty expensive. I know Frangelico is like $23 a bottle, and you can watch us, drink it and enjoy it and do some different cocktails with it as well. But the other part too is if you hear us and you know that you kind of like this person's flavor palette, you can know whether or not it's something you don't like ahead of time. Because
there's also a difference between like the average kid that just goes and spends like $10 and gets like a 24 pack of some cheap ass beer that tastes like dog shit. And there's the people that actually go out to create their own drink. Like one of my all time favorite movies inspired me to even try this drink, The Big Lebowski. Okay. White Russian. Okay. I played a drinking game like when I was like 18 years old where we watched a Quentin Tarantino movie. We watched Django, and we had to drink or take a shot of basically like chug these like shots of like Fireball and all these types of things in White Russians whenever they said a bad, like really bad racial slur in Django.
Yeah.
And by like 10 minutes into the movie, we're completely fucking trashed.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's crazy because like that's an actual really good drink. And that was inspired by like one of just a movie or something. And like people like, my buddies, we're going out drinking. I know you don't drink, but I'm just giving you the offer out there. I'm like, just call me if you need a ride home or something. Like I can have fun with you guys. I mean, I work at a hotel, so I literally pull cases and cases of beer out of a hotel every day. It's like it just sits in my garage. I'm like, I don't drink it, but my buddy comes over and he's like, try this one. It's like a mudslide, and I'll drink a little bit of it. I'm like, it tastes good, but I mean, it's crazy to see just the combinations they can make. It's like when you have like artificial flavored drinks, you're like, how the hell did they get that to taste like that?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting on that note. I think that's something that we really want. We haven't done it, and it bugs the shit out of me. We want to do an episode that's like a PSA on those, because alcoholic beverages are regulated by the FDA in a different way than standard beverages. And it's one of the things that really gets me a little peeved, because you'll get things like the Seagram's wine coolers or the Smirnoff ices. And you're like, yeah, how did they get it to taste like that? But then they don't list what's in it. You can't get like, I know up here and in Florida, which are the only two places where I can actually speak to it, they're not required to list the nutritional facts on it. But when you start drinking things like that and you see it's like a particularly low alcohol by volume, then you just have to assume that they're just spiking the shit out of it with sugar, or they're spiking it with a bunch of flavor to make it taste like that. But man, you have no idea what you're drinking. You can't find like an ingredients list.
Yeah.
You don't know if they're working with like high fructose corn syrup or like real cane sugar.
Imagine imagine like when a gluten became a giant thing, like people are becoming allergic to gluten, like that probably hit the beer industry pretty fucking hard.
Yeah, I'll bet. It's so weird. I feel like that's like one of the biggest things that either came and went or it came and is still here. And I have no fucking idea. Like I've got a pretty good idea as to, I've taken like 2 nutrition classes.
Do you know what gluten is?
I have no fucking idea what it is.
It's apparently, okay, this is what everyone thinks it is. You don't know what it is. That's the thing. That's it. It's fucking gluten. Like that's how people explain it. If I ask people like, you actually know what gluten is? And they go, it's gluten. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, but what is it though? Like, well, it's this thing. It's gluten, man. What are you talking about? I'm like, all right, gluten is like the chunky, like really kind of crappy, like gummy part of the bread. Okay, it's like in the wheat processing when it gets made. Like it's all wheat kind of has it, but it makes you feel sluggish as hell. Okay, that's really actually true. Mostly because it's like if you just ate a pasta dinner, like you just got a giant glucose overload there.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a scientist, nutritionalist, any of that, so don't take everything I said word for word. But it is like if you think of a machine that grounds up like wheat or something, all that gummy stuff that gets kind of produced off to the side that you kind of throw in the trash, that would be like gluten a little bit. It's like that extra shit that, some of it gets through. So that's what kind of makes you feel like bloated and all those types of things. I'm like, but that allergy just seemed like, oh, peanuts have an allergy. I'm gonna have an allergy to gluten. And some guy was just like, yeah, just ran with it. I'm like, honestly, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. But I guess that kind of makes sense. I don't know how the allergy works, and I'm not into that shit.
What do you
But
mean
I know
how allergy works?
that's because that's always how I always assumed it was. It was probably has something to do with the yeastiness of it. But that's when I started noticing that feeling about, I think I want to say 2-3 years ago, and that's kind of when I kind of switched up my diet to, if I need to have bread, I'll do like a flatbread. I'll do like a cracker or like a pita or something like that. Something that doesn't. Now I'm probably naming shit like that's good gluten, but
You
I'm
own a
now
manly podcast, sir. Don't be talking about no flat, low carb bread in front of me. What are you talking about?
yeah with it. But I always like doing it because I didn't like sagging so much. And I say this as somebody who I bought a fucking deli pizza yesterday, and it was like an actual, yeah, we made this dough. So that meant it was sticky as hell. So I could not figure out how to actually get it off of the tin and on like into the oven. So I just turned it into a calzone. I was like, fuck it, flip it so I can get more hand grip on it. So I cooked it like that, and I got about 2/3 of the way into it before I was like, oh shit, that first third is hitting me.
Dude, I'm telling you, like it's crazy because like for me, like my experience with alcohol, I just have always had a very kind of really shitty experience when I'm drinking it. Like I remember I bought a large bottle of Fireball, and well, I didn't buy it, but my brother bought it for me, and he was like, I drank a little bit of it, don't like it, made me sick. And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting here sipping it, watching Netflix, like when I'm like maybe like a senior in high school.
Yeah.
Dude, I killed like that whole bottle and it didn't hit me until all at once. Like I thought I was like, wow, I must have a high tolerance. Yeah, I killed this giant ass bottle. I was sending Snapchats to my buddy. Next thing I know, I'm waking up on the bathroom floor. Apparently I knocked myself out while taking a piss. Like, because I had a shell. Like, you ever seen Scary Movie where the guy's playing Yahtzee and he goes Yahtzee and he jumps up and hits his head?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what happened to me. I had a shelf like behind where you would stand if you were urinating in the toilet, and I backed up. I guess I kept backing up, and I knocked myself out. Woke up to one of my family members screaming at me, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I just crawled up off the bathroom floor and went right to bed. But
Yeah.
I'm a fitness freak. So you want to talk about like nutrition and that going down into you, like what you were saying with the bread kind of experiencing, like you felt like kind of saggy in a way, you kind
Yeah.
of felt like crappy if you eat crappy. Same thing with alcohol. For that, like, I mean, first 2 days after drinking that Fireball and feeling like crap, I was sweating nothing but cinnamon to the point where I can't even be in the same room with cinnamon. If you cook French toast, I'm out. I'm out.
That's funny. Yeah. I got that way with was it vodka for a long time? For a long time, right when I first started drinking a little heavier and sort of like going out a lot more and drinking a lot of vodka, I remember I had way too many experiences where like I was either testing my limit a little too hard or I just blew right past my limit and I just fucking vomit and pass out. And this was like, and I think in the span of a month, like 5 or 6 times because I'm a stupid asshole. But then it got to the point where like now I've kind of got to the point where I'm a lot more developed in my palate and I'm a lot more developed in what's going on. But
Well, you learn to
that
slow down a little bit too. I think like problem with most kids like my age around 21, 22, like they're all like drinking as hard as they possibly can. Like, especially when they get a day off. I'm like, I get it. I get why people drink in my area only on the fact of there's nothing to fucking do during winter. Like this is a summer town. So during winter, there is literally nothing's opened. You're just going home, playing games all day, or you're doing something like just mindlessly scrolling on your phone. And I'm like, I like alcohol. I don't drink it myself, but I like what it can do for some people. I know some people that suffer from severe anxiety. My buddy, one of my first podcast episodes with him, and he was on my birthday podcast. I'm born on New Year's Eve, so yeah, like everyone's out partying on my birthday, mostly for it to fucking end, which makes me feel kind of bad, but whatever. And he bought a bottle of Jack Daniels, and we're just sitting on a podcast on New Year's Eve, just drinking it and like just hanging out. And like he was like really open in the podcast. Like he's not an emotional guy, doesn't really show any of his feelings, but he's like, dude, like he lost his brother, and then I'm his best friend, so I basically became his brother. And he was able to show that to me. And I was like, damn, like this is where I see the benefit in alcohol. And it also levels you when you're going out of your mind on it. Because if you drink too much, your brain's like, fuck it, I'm turning the lights off. And they shut you down.
Yeah. I do like that factor of it. But I know kind of the way I've gotten, just because I know my tendency to do it. It's like that. It's like I'll just work a ton and then I'll get a day off and I'll be like, oh man, I'm starting early. But it just got to the point where then I would just like blow through my day without really feeling it. So my typical way of kind of handling it is I will do a shot of alcohol, like a hard liquor. I'll do a shot of that, and then I'll just coast on beers for the rest of the day of like a 6 to 8% ABV. That way I kind of get that kick and I can feel that taper come down. And then after like 2 or 3 hours, I'm already back to normal and I don't have to worry about anything. It's kind of like my way of like compartmentalizing it. But I feel like it's one of those things where if you have the proclivity towards it, you can just end up just fucking hammering yourself so hard.
I'm telling you, man, like, dude, I'm pretty sure you probably experienced this too. Waking up, I mean, after me drinking that Fireball and waking up the next day, I felt like someone threw my head in a like compression chamber. Like my right eye felt like it was popped out farther than my left eye. And I'm just sitting there. Someone drops a fork at breakfast, and I'm like, shut up. Oh my God.
I always get the same thought. I always have this exact same thing. I've been thinking for like 3 years. It's like, if I felt like this in the 1800s, I know I would try and drill a hole in my head, convinced it would relieve the pressure.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, that's definitely like, you got to think what they did back then. Imagine the person that first discovered alcohol.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He's like the guy that decided to drink from a cow's tit. Like, who's that guy?
Jesus.
Like, what guy just one day was like, I wonder what that tastes like, and then just put his mouth up to it? Like, it's like a freaking drinking fountain at a school. Like, that's probably more dangerous than a cow's udder.
Yeah. And then he's like, here, I wonder if a horse tastes the same.
I wonder what people taste like.
Yeah.
No, I tell my buddy, because he goes out drinking and he has this stupid explanation for it. He goes, I'm like, dude, why are you drinking so much right now when you know you're going to be hurting tomorrow? And he goes, that's the future me to handle. I'm like, okay. Like, are we gonna keep having that mindset? So like, he'll get home at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll wake him up at 9 a.m. when I get up and freaking open up his blinds, open up his curtains.
Yeah. Hey, future you, welcome back.
Hey, welcome back to the real world. He's like, dude, I'm still drunk. I'm like, doesn't matter.
Yes.
Time to get your day started, son.
Yeah. It's a weird one. I know I guess I used to get like that a lot, but I don't know.
Well, you learn to slow down when you get older. You get everything's kind of, when you're a kid, you want everything happening at once. You want everything now. And you see it with some mentally childish adults nowadays. But like when you're a kid, you're trying to experience the whole world as much as possible, and you feel like you're not going to have enough time. Like I said, there's benefits to alcohol, but I know a buddy of mine that was drinking way through his high school years, way before he should have, was always influenced drinking and driving. And he got into a huge car accident and ended up killing someone beside him, like his passenger. And he's been on my podcast. I'll let you know the episode. His name's Timmy Gingrich. And this kid, like, everyone heard what happened. He got into a car accident and severely, like, his foot was ripped off. He looks completely different from when he did back in school. And I had him on my podcast and I was just talking to him. I was like, I don't want to bring up the incident, but like, and he's open to it. He's like, dude, you know what I do now with my life? And I'm like, tell me about it. He goes, I go to schools and I warn them about drinking and driving. I speak to these people. I'm like, I would have never thought in a million years he would have turned out that. And he does an amazing job. And the way he's able to explain it and kind of make you feel like, you know, relatable in a way, like you're just a kid, but you're also trying to experience so much. And I'm like, dude, seeing his change was something I was like, he would have never gotten there without that. And
Yeah.
it sucked that had to happen, but seeing somebody come back from something like that and see that and still struggle with it every single day, like, you know, it's not to put alcohol in a bad aspect. It's to put being a dumbass in a bad aspect. Like,
Yeah.
there's a proper way to do things. Like, if you drink and you want to drink a hell of a lot, don't drive. I know at 2:00 in the morning, a fucking taco sounds amazing. But,
Yeah.
you know, I always chalk it up to Bill Burr's bit, like when you're leaving a bar drunk, like you're about to drive home, and, you know, it's like probably the most popularity you'll ever have because people are grabbing at your shirt like paparazzi saying, don't drive, don't drive. And you're like, no flash photography, no flash photography. Like,
Oh man.
it's true though, because like it's the weird part about alcohol being an antidepressant is we all kind of do suffer a little bit from something in a way. I mean, every day, like you don't get the Starbucks Frappuccino, you end up getting pissed off and taking it out on the woman beside you or something.
Mhm.
It's, you know, you got to do things properly and also do it in moderation and know that there's always ramifications behind your decisions. You know what I mean? The coolest part about listening to a podcast about people that are just drinking and enjoying liquor is you guys do it in a fun, moderate aspect rather than the dude that just goes to the bar religiously and lives there and it just is in a slump depression. Now you guys are like, hey, this is rum and coke. Let's try it out. And next thing you know, freaking, you got these random conversations that are happening. Like, it's social lubricant too. Like,
Yeah.
I had a person on my podcast. His name's Brian Yunt in the very beginning. He told me before, like, or not, he told me before that he took a shot before he came on my podcast. And he told me that after we got done filming. I was like, why'd you need a shot? He's like, dude, I suffer from social anxiety, like severely bad. I need a shot first thing in the morning to even go out into the world. And I'm like, that sucks, but I get it. That's where I see alcohol as a benefit. Sometimes people have that psychological dependence, like they need that to just to be somebody. And the best thing to do is just not to take it, be an asshole about it. If you're an asshole about it, you're going to make it a bad experience for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right because it's part of the biggest thing that we touch up on during the podcast is we'll never. I'll say we'll never because it's happened a few times. But that's the other thing too is we're home. We're not going anywhere. But it's we always try to push the fact that you want to do if we'll do 3 drinks during a podcast, that'll usually be all we end up doing during the night. And even still, technically, that's an unhealthy level because I think what is the FDA says that they classify binge drinking as 5 drinks in under 2 hours. And if you go at that pace, that's 3 drinks in the first hour. But most of the time when we turn the cameras off and we're done with the podcast, we might hop into a game, but each one of us is hitting the water. Because it takes, I'm in Central Standard Time. So the podcast ends at 9 for me, but it's always on Tuesdays. So everyone else who's on the Eastern time zone, it's ending at 10 p.m. So they like to have that taper off period where they're just pounding water because every single one of us has had one of those moments where we went too far and then we paid for it the next day. And we just can't afford to let that kind of thing happen. So it's interesting because initially we weren't crazy about putting the podcast in the middle of the week, but we knew that we didn't want to do it on the weekends because everyone would want to do anything else on the weekends. So squeezing it in on Tuesdays makes it a really interesting kind of thing because it has that real world framing. It has that we all have work to do tomorrow. We all have to go to work the next day.
Yeah, it keeps your
So,
priorities in line too. Like, yeah, we're gonna have fun and do a podcast, but we can't go batshit insane like most people do when they show up to work the next day with sunglasses on. Like, nobody speak to me unless I've had my coffee. And you're like, just because you sat out drinking all night, now I have to suffer.
yeah, exactly. And we don't like to be oh man, it's rough. I think every one of us has had one of those moments where after we finish the podcast, we all have known each other for a good amount of years. But I think every one of us has had one of those moments where we got a little too crazy, we got a little too turned, and we all feel pretty comfortable with each other, just like sending one of us a private message being like, you're coming off like an asshole right now. You should just back it up a little bit. And a lot of us have gotten to the point where we feel confident and comfortable enough with each other where we'll kind of check ourselves. So it's nice that we all I really think that doing the stupid podcast has really matured us about it because it's given us doing it a perspective. And since we're all invested in it as something that, hopefully can take off or something that can turn into something, we all have our ideas about it. We all have our passions about it. So it's nice to know that through this vested idea is what the Two Bottles Down podcast is, we all kind of are like, hey man, it's not very TBD. If it sounds dumb, but it's kind of nice that that's always what we want to focus on. Is we don't, you can find anyone who can go online and review a beer, or you can find anyone who can teach you how to do a cocktail. But it's always fun to have 5 different people approach a singular thing with different opinions on how they have it and different reasons why they like it, they don't like it.
And different tastes too. Like, I know some people that drink beer because they had an experience with it, like a story behind it. Like, oh, this is the beer my grandfather used to share with me when I was fishing on a dock. I'm like, oh, well, that explains why you like it so much. Like, for someone else, that someone's not going to have that experience with it. It's just like when you try a certain food or something. Like, people talk about alcohol addiction being one of the worst ones. Like, I had a family member suffer from being a alcoholic, and it was difficult to kind of see that, but that's where I kind of steered off from alcohol because I kind of saw the bad sides of it, but there's good sides of it too. Like, I've seen the good in it. I've seen it bring out like kind of the best things. I mean, hell, I remember one time I took a little bit of some of that hard liquor just to be able to talk to somebody, like, just a girl that I liked. It gives you that it gives you that ultimate confidence. You feel like
courage, as they call it.
Yeah, you literally feel like a super saiyan. You walk in there like, what's up? Like, how you doing? How you doing? Huh?
Yeah. You slam one down. What's going on?
Yeah, I'm like, it's good too. Like, I didn't know eggnog had alcohol in it.
A classic eggnog should have alcohol in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I got fucked up when I was like 7 years old because no one told me that.
You grabbed the wrong bottle. That's what.
No, I grabbed the wrong pitcher.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah. My mom will always do that. She'll always get like a really small batch because we have like a niece and a nephew who's like 7 and 4 now. Not a good uncle. But she'll always have a big pitcher of rum nog that she'll make, and that's always a fun, good one. But even still, that's another one where it's like, yeah, it's delicious. Yeah, I like drinking it, but god damn, that is thick. That is hard to go down if you're slamming those.
It's like you're eating ice cream. It's like you're trying to like toss it back real quick. And next thing you know, like for me, I was like sipping it like it was like chocolate milk, and then next thing you know, my dad's like, where'd all the eggnog go? And I'm like, there's a whole thing on the table. And I'm like, oh yeah, it was really good. And they're like, oh my God. Like, he's not even like 9 years old yet.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's how you got to get interested in it.
I think it's crazy because it's like, I remember it was always this stigmatized thing, like going to prom, be careful with like drinking the punch. And I was like, that's got to be a joke. I remember I actually tried it one time and I was like, this is straight alcohol. Like, this is gasoline. Like, this is like hurting just to go down the throat. And nobody even really paid attention to it until some girl ended up having to leave and get her stomach pumped.
Oh God.
I was like, you could tell it's alcohol. You just kept going. You just kept, you didn't care. And she was like, I had no idea. I've never tried alcohol before. And like, she's telling her parents that. And I'm like looking at her. I'm like, I know for a fact you party every fucking weekend.
Yeah, it's it's a little weird. I know, and it's funny. We didn't really have that issue at my prom, but that's the other thing too. I went to a school with 5,400 people. And there's like 1,000 people in my graduating class, so they're like, we're going to strictly regulate the punch. But that's fine because every single one of us either has an uncle or an older brother who's like, here you go, buddy, have fun. So I mean, we all got there kind of a little blitzed, but I don't.
Just enough to feel like comfortable, like dancing around a bunch of other people you're supposedly supposed to like, but end up really hating them all.
Oh, for sure, dude. I had long hair, no beard, and braces, so I needed all the confidence I could get.
I think it's crazy, man, because like there's so much about it. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure every kid at some point has probably tried to pay some person to go into a gas station and get them beer, or at least just get them one beer. You know what I mean? Because it's the same thing we talk about with the gun. Like, if you stigmatize it so much to make them not try it, they're going to end up going way over the deep end on their own. At least you want to keep it in that safe boundary. Like, you want to try a swig of this? Yeah, sure. And then you try a sip. You're like, that's disgusting. Like, yeah, oh, don't drink it then. And the next thing you know, you steer away from it.
Yeah. I think that's really the smartest thing you can do is properly educate someone. And I think a lot of, because I'm not trying to hop around points, but we were talking about not needing to go blitz and not needing to binge every time you get a day off. And I feel like a lot of that also just has to do with the amount of space in between you and high school. So I think, you spend, when you get out of the school system, you're still in that comparative mindset. You're still in that, I'm doing this and these other people are doing this. And I feel like that can lead to some of the anxiety. I know that's speaking from my experience. That's what led to a lot of anxiety for me was on my third and fourth year out of high school, I was back at home with my folks instead of up where I was supposed to be. And that was something that always kind of made me feel like I was just in a fucking hole where it was like, I'm working 2 jobs, I'm barely scraping by. Why am I working so much? And that was something where whenever I got a day off, I was just like, it was more like I couldn't handle it. Like, I was like, God fucking damn it. What am I doing? What do I need to do to get out of it? So for me, it was always like a despair oriented anxiety. But now that I've gotten a little bit older and I've gotten out of the window of comparing myself to other people, and I've also gotten more into the line of financial security and being able to do the things that I want to do, I find myself not wanting to get stupid shit faced all the time. I'll have a couple of drinks, and especially if I'm going out with friends, I'll have probably a couple more or a little closer to more than I shouldn't. But it's definitely something that I think contributes to it. Is I think that binge drinking society, the binge drinking ideology, tends to lend itself more towards people who might be subduing feelings. And then it's like that old saying where, drunk words are sober thoughts. If you're just keeping a bunch of shit in for weeks, either you don't like your job or school's too hard or shit's not going the way you thought it would. And then all of a sudden you just slip a little bit past that edge, you can just slide all the way down.
It's not just with alcohol either. It's with anything. You can't put a Band-Aid over a problem. Like, it's all it is. You're finding another outlet to deal with the thing, but you're really just suppressing it. You're not really getting rid of the actual problem. So it's always going to be there, which leads into a binge drinking society. You want constantly drink all the time to get ignored of this problem. I'm like, just fix it.
Yeah. It's like you can't just stick your head in the sand on this one. You gotta have that, that foresight. You gotta have that wherewithal to kind of get yourself out of it. And and it's funny because I think about like how I got from there to here, and I don't ever want to be the kind of person who says that you should invest your happiness and your hopes in another person. But I think it's definitely because of how I met my wife. She was the first person that made me feel like, I'm fucking done doing this, and I feel like she was also in a place where she's like, yo, this is fucked. So we just kind of grew out of it together, and we kind of pushed ourselves to get new jobs, study harder, do things together. And it was when I felt comfortable sharing that burden and sharing that load with somebody and knowing that they were doing the same with me. That was kind of the thing that got us out of it. And so I think that's what made us both more stable overall, which is great. Um,
That's a good change. Sometimes you need that too, because you realize like it sometimes takes that one person to kind of come in and give you a better perspective and make you kind of prioritize some things. I mean, it doesn't mean alcohol is the worst thing in the world. That just means like, hey, you don't have to live your life by this thing. You don't have to invest it in that. You can, find someone you connect with and maybe do it together, but not in like a super bad way.
yeah, yeah, not in a way that it's like. You ever see that movie Annihilation?
Yes, I have.
Love that movie. So there's one line in there that I absolutely adore, and it's from the psychologist role where she says a lot of people, nobody ever tries to commit suicide, but everybody always tries to self-destruct in one way or another. And I think it ties in with that a lot. It's not a constructive behavior. It's not something that is going to benefit. But sometimes you just gotta bring things down for a little bit. Sometimes you just gotta erase and then build back up. So I think that's got a lot to do with it more than anything else. I think when you have moments where you made a mistake and you had an accident, it's because you just broke yourself down a little too much and you weren't as sharp as you needed to be. And I
Yeah.
think that I
Well,
think that that's really kind of the core to not having the best
more
drinking.
people need to work on building themselves up instead of tearing themselves down, man. It's something we fall to in life just because it seems like we get overwhelmed a little too much and we don't know how to prioritize. But I have hopes when it comes to some things. I think people just need a little bit wake up. I feel like we're just walking around comfortably numb. We're not
Mm.
we're not questioning anything. But I mean, people like you that have like a podcast out there that are doing stuff with their life, that are still hanging out with their friends. I mean, nowadays people don't even spend the time to hang out with their friends anymore because leaving the house is just too damn difficult.
Yeah.
And it, it honestly, it's awesome to see that, man, because your podcast is something amazing, dude. Like being able to talk with you and being able to find you through that, like I'm better for knowing you also too, and hearing your like experience. Like I've never talked to a Starbucks barista, so like even though you don't do that anymore, that's still something I had so many questions on. But like it's crazy to see like there's when it comes to podcasts, like there's different concepts for everything that you can be interested in. And if you're not interested in something, then you don't have to listen to it. But it's cool to know that there's content out there like yours. And I want to give you here a minute at the end to kind of promote your own podcast too, so people can find your awesome stuff.
Oh, sure. Thanks, man. Yeah. So before I get into it, I would say the same thing for you. If I had when I was 21, I was trying to do Twitch streaming and I was trying to do like video essays on YouTube, but it was something that I don't think it was smart. It felt more like a herd mentality more than anything else. But I think what you got is a really great concept of something I think it's so simple, but I don't think it's basic. It's just getting people because that's exactly one of the reasons why I like working with small businesses. Like, well, who did I just sign this last week? Oh, I signed someone who sells bow hunting equipment. I don't know a fucking thing about bow hunting equipment. It's just so cool to kind of get in there and see what someone's perspective is on
They make you change the
something.
game on bow hunting. Next thing you want to do, you want to go out into your front yard and shoot the neighborhood squirrels or something.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's overkill. Just go flopping around. Well, what's great is you just put it over a fire. You don't even need a skewer. You just use the button.
Imagine coming out of your house with a fucking bow. Like, I mean, I'm talking about one of those like actual bows you have to pull back and shit, and just killing a squirrel right on your front property. Like your neighbor's like, we're fucking moving.
Yeah, no shit. It's a great way to filter out some of the neighbors. That's fine.
Only the strong survive.
Yeah. But yeah, besides that, yeah. I guess when it comes to my podcast, be sure to check out Two Bottles Down. We do a live show every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are currently in an in-between season between season 3 and season 4. We're doing a beer royale. We just finished drinking collectively over 210 different beers this season. So we took everyone's highest rated beers and turned them into a tournament bracket, and we will be going through them over the course of the next few months and announcing a winner for best beer of 2019. You can view it live at Tuesday, or you can also check out our YouTube channel where we're posting the live broadcasts on a weekly basis.